Welcome to Wrestling for the Faith, a weekly podcast celebrating faith, family, and wrestling. And now, here's your host, Kage.
Hello everyone, welcome to Wrestling for the Faith. I'm your host, Kage. Thank you for listening to this episode. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different. I've got my old buddy, the coach, back with me today, and a couple of weeks ago, he mentioned, hey, why don't we do an episode where you're the one being interviewed, where we're getting the life and career of Casey Kage. So that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to be on the hot seat.
All right.
Going to be discussing some fan questions and questions that the coach has on his mind, but we're just going to kind of call it in the ring and see where it goes. I do want to remind everyone that this Saturday, Praise on the River, it's going to be a great time. I hope everybody can come out and join us. Myself and Ranger Ross is going to be there sharing our testimonies. There's going to be free food, gospel singing. Bring a chair, come enjoy a great day with us, because I believe it's going to be a fun time. But other than that, do you know any other announcements?
No, I don't have any.
All right, man. Well, I'm just going to kick back here in my chair and open my bottle of water and pitch it to you and let you do what you need to do.
All right. Well, this is going to be fun right here. We're talking before we come on. I said, man, as long as I've known you, I don't think I've ever heard how you got started. You know, we talk about being wrestling fans. You know, I told you I was always a wrestling fan. I always watched it growing up. So my first question is, how did you just wake up one day and say, hey, I want to be a professional wrestler today?
Well,
so we'll start from there, and just we'll go from there.
I remember being a kid, and my daddy tells the stories all the time about how the Road Warriors used to terrify me.
Yeah.
I remember being at the UTC arena, and I think it was Vader and Sting fighting. You know, this was 91, 92, something like that. And I was a huge Sting fan. And I remember Dad running me down to the guardrail, and so that I could, try to tag Sting's hand when he comes out. Well, Vader comes out first, and he used to have that big old mastodon head thing.
Oh yeah.
And he comes over right in front of me and does his big roar, and the smoke or steam, whatever, comes out the top of that thing. And I wrapped around my dad's neck and was terrified. But as far back as I can remember, I remember just being in love with the sport. Mm-hmm. It's something that my dad always watched, and it was just something that I fell in love with. And I remember I might have been 5 years old, was watching wrestling. I remember asking my dad, I said, can I do that when I get big? And he said, son, you can do anything you set your mind to.
Mm-hmm.
And so here we are.
So that was his reaction? You can do anything you want to do, right?
Yeah, you can do anything you set your mind to. So that's when I fell in love with wrestling. Now, as far as, all my life, it was my passion.
Yeah.
I always had teachers in school, when they would ask me what I was going to do, and I'd tell them pro wrestler, and they're like, yeah, right.
Yeah.
And I've got a story about that too. But there was one time that I went back to my old high school, and a lot of those teachers who said, yeah, right, the gym's packed with 700 or 800 people, and I remember several of them sitting on the front row, and I was like, hey, I was never gonna do this, and you just come and paid to see me.
That's a good story. Yeah, I like that. So you just watch the wrestling. Sting was my favorite wrestler too. I always liked always pulling for the good guy.
Yeah.
You know. But as
I
a fan,
loved his paint. I loved the blonde hair, all the different colors.
Yeah.
I mean, I had the flat top. I had the roll-on paint. I was definitely a little stinger when I was really small, and even up until he got to started doing the crow gimmick. I was still a fan. I was a hardcore Sting fan up until Stone Cold Steve Austin, and then my focus kind of went another direction.
Yeah. So, I guess the next question would be: so you're interested in it, and you're watching over the years. So how do you start transitioning into becoming?
Well, myself and Jay West, who went on to be my manager, and then several other managers. Me and him were best friends growing up. We were always at each other's houses, wrestling and everything. Then we had another friend named Matt. We all three broke in at the same time.
Right.
But before we actually broke in, we had a backyard organization.
Yeah.
That's not something I recommend.
I think as a fan, as growing up as a kid, I think we all had that backyard organization where, hey, I can do this.
Exactly. And there's what we did matches, and of course we did some chairs and some silly stuff.
Right.
But we was not doing this, like that. They made those DVDs of backyard wrestling where these idiots are just going crazy.
Yeah,
we wasn't doing that stuff. We were. We didn't know what we were doing, but we were trying our best to protect each other.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about too. So,
but we started the Chaos Wrestling Federation.
Yeah.
When we were 15, 16 years old, and it was great. Jay, he was always into. He was always into editing and technology. So he could cut up music. He could edit video. He could make our backyard videos look like Monday Night Raw.
Yeah.
With the lower thirds and our names and the the CWF logo and all this other stuff. It was a backyard thing, but it looked like a $1 million production, and he was really good with that stuff, and so we did that for a while, and then I ran into somebody. I don't even remember how I come to know the person, but found out that there was some guy who had a ring set up in his yard.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I gotta find this ring, So I ended up finding the ring and going over with a couple of guys, and we just playing basically backyard, a few times. But now we've got a ring.
Right.
And then I run into Big Henry House at a Dusty Rhodes Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling show at the Armory. We always went to those. We loved them. And so, Hoss, I knew that he was a family friend. I had not seen him in years. We wasn't that close at that time. But I knew that, his family and my family went way back, And so during the intermission one time, I remember going up to him. He's out doing autographs and stuff, and I remember, going up and reminding him who I am,
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, and I said, I want to get in this. And so anyway, we started talking, and from then on, he started training me, and I was, I guess 17, and so he takes me to this where this ring is set up that I'd been going to.
Right.
Except he starts teaching me the real deal, teaching me how to bump and the other stuff. But it wasn't but a few weeks or, a month or so. And somehow a promoter at a little show in Georgia got my number and gave me a call. And he said, hey, I'm needing some extra guys to fill spots this Saturday. And he said, I heard that you were training, and he said, I was wanting to see if you'd come down. And I thought, oh, Lord,
Yeah.
And so I called Hoss, and I was like, can I do this? Am I ready for this? Is it going to be all right? And he said, yeah, I believe you'll be all right. We'll go down and check it out. He said, I'll go with you. So that Saturday, funny story, and I may have told this on the podcast before, but it's a funny story to go along with that. I remember the promoter asking me what my name was.
Yeah.
And at the time, I'm sitting. Yeah,
I was gonna get that, but you go ahead and tell me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sitting on the front porch, and I'm shaking. I'm nervous, and Hoss tells me, yeah, we can go. Well, I call the promoter back, and I said, yeah, I can be there. And he's like, okay, what's your name? And I said, Casey. Well, what's your last name? And I said, I don't know. I don't have a, wrestling last name
Right.
yet. And he said, well, I need something. And I'm like, I'm looking around and I'm thinking, Casey. Well, I don't want to use my real last name. It don't have a ring to it. And I'm like, what in the world? What am I going to do here? And I look over, like I said, I'm sitting on the front porch swing, and I look over and the dog kennel.
Yeah.
And so the chain link fence. And so I just thought, Kage, Casey Kage.
Yeah.
And he said, okay, good. And I said, but spell it with a K.
So that's how you got the name Casey Kage.
That's where it come from. Just a spur of the moment. Hey, you just got this amount of time to come up
I
with
think it's
something,
pretty
kid.
good. Right off the spot. So it's like, okay, you got your first match coming up. Got your name. Walk us through that. You gotta be excited, right?
I'm excited.
Nervous.
I'm excited. I'm nervous. I went to Hibbett's and got some of those little black. I don't even want to call them. They're definitely not wrestling tights, but they're like leggings or whatever you gonna call them. But went to Hibbett's, got some of those, and I had some shooter boots, some wrestling shoes, from wrestling. So got those, bought some kick pads, and put over. And so I go down that Saturday, and they tell me that I'm tagging with this other guy, and we are in the main event, 4-way. It might have been a tag title match. I don't know, but there's 4 teams.
Yeah.
And it's chaos. There was no disqualification, no count out, no nothing. And I'm like, are you kidding me? This is my first ever match. I don't have, and I'm seeing these guys walking out to the ring with their barbed wire baseball bats and barbed wire chairs and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh Lord, what have I gotten myself into? But on that one, Jay West, he was there with me on the first one, and he managed me, and he did, for a while when I first started. The funny story at the very beginning of the match, me and him are on the outside with the other guy that was my tag partner that night, and we're standing there, conversing, and really, I'm terrified to get in the ring because I don't know any of these guys, and I don't know, they know very little about me, and so we're standing out there, and we're talking, huddled up, and this guy, Jess Wade, he just jumps off with like a big splash or a double clothesline onto me and Jay, and I mean, boom, we go crash into the floor. Well, funny thing, Jay's parents are there.
Yeah.
And his dad, they didn't have guardrails, but they had ropes around it. And his dad jumps up and goes across the rope and grabs Jess, and they're about to go at it, and there's people over there trying to break them up and everything, and then Jay's dad ends up getting arrested, and but Jay, always professional, he played it off like crazy. I remember, I don't know who that man is. Get him out of here. He's a crazy fan. Get him out of here.
Oh, man, that's great.
But yeah, that was our beginning, and there was I know Jess Wade was in that match. I think Big Country Shane Williams. Michael Cross, I think a guy named Freak. I really can't remember who else was in that, but it was a four-team thing. But I mean, there was like I think there was a bottle of Faygo that come out and got splashed everywhere, and there was barbed wire bats and chairs and maybe even thumbtacks and all kinds of stuff. I remember, getting cut up from some barbed wire and whatnot, but I just remember being, glad to get out of there.
Yeah.
When we were eliminated, I was glad to go.
Right. Oh, man. So is that pretty much how it went down after that? And just
that's from there.
You had it, but you're glad it's over, and you're glad to get out of there.
Yeah, I was glad to get out of there on that one because I was terrified. I didn't know anything about all those weapons and all that stuff, and I was like, I was expecting to go down and just have a one-on-one match with somebody that maybe I just took a few things, bumped around for them, and got pinned.
Right.
I wasn't expecting a hardcore four-way tag team match.
I can imagine it'd be kind of scary. Like, okay, man, I'm excited, but I'm nervous already. And now I got all this up. What the world's going on here? I just wanted to have a wrestling match. I just wanted to, take some bumps.
Yeah, it was definitely something. And, whenever we come out of the match, got to the back, and I remember Jess Wade and Shane Williams. This is Big Country Shane Williams, not the King Shane Williams. But they come to us, and they're talking to us and telling us, stuff we need to work on, and I'm like, yeah, I need to work on a lot. There's a lot I don't know. I've only been training for, a few weeks, a month or so at a time, And so they offered to start getting there early.
Yeah.
And from that point on, I went down and worked on that show for like the next year. And every Saturday, Jess and Shane and some other guys, sometimes Scott Prater and the different guys come in and out, but mainly Jess and Shane, they would get there like 4 hours before bell time and, work with me and Matt.
Yeah.
And teach us. And so, they just kind of took us under their wing and showed us, and we would train, 4 or 5 hours before every Saturday show, and then, we've been run through the ringer, and then when it comes time for the show to start, might go out there and do 2 or 3 different matches.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, those guys, they took us and finished off our training and taught us.
So yeah, that's pretty cool though. You're getting to be a part of the show, but you're also getting training.
Yeah.
So on the job training is what we call it.
That's exactly what it was.
That's pretty cool right there. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, as we was talking earlier, I never actually, that was my question. How do you get started? How do you one just wakes up and wants to be a wrestler,
Yeah.
So that's good, man. I like that. So you're there for a year?
Yeah.
Or you're going down there?
It was about 6 months before I ever went to another show. I just worked there every Saturday and trained there, and then Hoss got me booked for Mahler Mays in Fort Payne, Alabama, and that was after I'd been working for about 6 months.
Yeah.
And so I went down there with him and worked that show for Mahler, and that was the first one that I had worked other than that first show.
Yeah.
So it was 6 months before I went to anywhere else, and then after that we started going to TWA on Friday nights.
Right.
So we would do TWA in Dalton on Friday nights, and then it was RCW, and then it got changed to CWA.
Right.
But that was what we were doing, weekly.
Yeah.
Hey guys, have you ever wanted to have your very own podcast? Well, you can now thanks to Anchor. Anchor has easy-to-use editing tools, and one of my favorite things about Anchor, they will distribute your podcast to all the major platforms, including Spotify, Apple, Google, and the others. All you have to do is download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today.
So those are the shows that we were sticking with and learning from, going back and forth and working every Friday and Saturday night there.
Yeah.
And still training too. So, but I mean, it was pretty fun. And, getting to get out and work with different guys,
right,
was really neat and helped, Then, after that, we started, after about 6 months, once we ventured out to TWA, we were TWA and CWA every Friday and Saturday, and then there was sometimes we would venture to another show and pull double shots, But I mean, we was just doing what we could, not knowing much about the business.
Right.
Just knowing what we were learning from the guys that we were around, not really knowing how to get bookings or where to go or anything along those lines. But, there was, I started out as a heel with Jay as my manager, and had a good run doing that, and then somehow, and I can't even remember how it happened, but I had some different tag title runs, one with Michael Flames, and then with Matt Jordan, or Twister as he was called at that time.
Mm-hmm.
He was also a huge Sting fan, so his gimmick was basically Sting, but and he was a really good artist, so he would paint a tornado on his face.
Yeah.
But then as we got older, he changed out of the gimmick name and just decided to go by Matt Jordan. But we started tagging,
as the Prodigal Sons, and we were doing that at CWA, TWA, and pretty much everywhere that we was going.
Right.
Because most of the time it was me and Jay and Matt in the cars when we first started.
Yeah.
And so that was our crew, and that was, it's so funny to look back and think about that. The two guys who were my best friends growing up, we broke in, and then we're running the roads together.
Yeah, that's gotta be pretty cool. So after TWA, and how are you now? Where you're training, you've been in it for.
After 8 months,
You
to
feeling
a
confident,
year,
or you feeling like you said, you still learning the business, how to get bookends and how to do this?
yeah, we were
As far as
definitely
in-ring.
still learning, but yeah, there was more confidence coming along. I always still tried to be respectful.
Right,
Of
yeah.
course, remember on the episode where I talked to Johnny Rock, if you'll remember that story that he told when we first came into TWA, we were, for some reason, hated.
Right.
Word had got around that we were disrespectful or we were young punks or whatever, and I don't know how exactly that happened. I may have been, but I don't think so, because like I told Johnny, the guys who I was working around on a weekly basis, Big Country Shane Williams, Jess Wade, and Scott Prater, they were the three core guys that were helping us along, and they would have put us in line if our heads were getting a little big,
Right.
But yeah, I mean, we were getting more confident and more comfortable in the ring.
Yeah. So, question: you prefer being a heel or a face? Baby face. See, as a fan growing up, I love the baby faces.
Yeah.
But if I was gonna be a wrestler, I think I'd rather be a heel, because
Well-
that's not my nature,
And
so
that's,
I'd want that gimmick of being a
that's
heel. So that was one of my questions.
I prefer heel.
Yeah.
I do. It was just natural to me.
Yeah.
I'm good with being babyface too. I like it. You're able to sell gimmicks and
Right, yeah.
make merchandise money and stuff a lot easier. Because I was always taught, if you're a heel, you're not going out during intermission and
Right,
trying to
right.
sell stuff to
Yeah.
people, or at least if you're going to, you make sure your match ain't until after the intermission.
Yeah.
That way you can, suck up to the people and get them to buy your stuff, and then you go out and turn on them after the intermission after
Right.
you've got their money. But, but no, I always enjoyed being the bad guy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was just growing up, man. I don't know. Like I said, I always liked the baby face, but if I was gonna be a wrestler, I think I'd rather be a heel, because it's totally opposite of who I am
Right.
outside. So,
Well, and like I was saying about that that first show outside of CWA, that Hoss got me booked on.
Yeah.
We go to Fort Payne, and it's the first time I've ever been in that town. First time I'd ever worked in a different town, and we go in, and I can't remember if it's an armory or what it was, but we go in, and they put me against Nick Rampage that night, and that was the first time I'd ever met him. But he was the heel, and this was my first time being a babyface.
Yeah.
I'm in a strange town, and I got to go out and make these people like me.
Right.
That's not an easy task.
Right.
And that's why I say I would prefer to heel.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Because I went out, and I mean, I was asking Hoss, I'm like, oh man, they got me babyface. What do I need to do? He's just Ricky Morton it. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So, I come through the curtain and, there's a pretty good crowd there, but I come through the curtain, I'm like, yeah, come on, Fort Payne. And they're looking at me like, who in the world are you?
Yeah.
I mean, you could have heard a pin drop, and I'm like, I'm going around, with my hand out, begging people to tag my hand.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's when I realized I think I like being heel more than babyface, because it's a lot easier to make people hate you than it is make them love you.
See, I never thought of it that way. But it makes a lot of sense. You want people to cheer you, if you're a good guy. So
yeah,
I guess.
And a lot of times they don't want to just cheer anybody.
Right.
You got to have something for them to connect to.
Right.
But as a heel, you could just go out there. Like I used to have a T-shirt that I wore everywhere when I worked in Georgia that said "Georgia sucks."
Yeah.
And my nickname was the Tennessee Dream. I had pleather pants with a big UTT on it. Orange, bright. I need to break those back out. I ran across them in the closet the other day. But I mean, that's it. You can just go out and say that their town or their sports team suck, and then boom,
they suck. Everything stinks around here.
Yeah. You got it. So it is. It's a lot easier to make people hate you than it is to make them love you.
So TWA and CWA, doing these shows. We want to talk about going to USA, right?
Yeah. So about the end.
How'd you get there?
About the end of 2004, I started seeing USA, and I used to watch it when it was Music City Wrestling.
Yeah.
Come on local here on Channel 53, WFLI. And then it disappeared. Well, then I'm sitting at the house one day and flipping through the channels and run across USA Championship Wrestling. And so I think, man, I need to get in touch with these people.
Right.
It's in Nashville. They're based in Nashville anyway. That's not far. I need to get in touch with these people.
Yeah.
So at the end, they would run a program, and I remember it like yesterday, as do you need a fundraiser for your boosters or your ball teams or fire department or whatever, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
Professional wrestling is the greatest fundraiser you'll ever have, and if so, contact. And the email was Bert, NWA@AOL.com.
Yeah.
And so I emailed Bert, NWA@AOL.com, not knowing, who it was at the time. I was just like, that's what so anyway, it was Bert Prentice. Man, if you don't know much about Bert, he's old school Tennessee promoter, and he did some stuff, big time in Memphis.
Right.
Manager, you look up some of the he was actually Christopher Love in a lot of places as a manager. But look up some of his old stuff, and man, he will crack you up. I watched a video from Memphis, early 90s the other day, and it was him and Ronnie P. Gossett, and they were in a little verbal war on the mic, and they just cracked me up. But anyway, I emailed Bert and I said, I want to get in. I want to, work for USA. So he says, send me a promo pic.
Right.
So I sent him one, and I don't see how in the world he took me, because this thing, if I found it on the internet today, I'd try to report it and get it taken down.
Right.
but you know, I sent him what I had, and it was a little promo pic that I had, you know, had my mom or my sister snap, you know, just up against the wall at the house, you know.
Right.
I think I was wearing like a singlet top and had like some pajama pants bottoms.
Yeah.
I mean, I was, but he emails me back and he says, be at the Stadium Inn for a tryout. If I'm not mistaken, it was January of 2005. And so that was it. I take off to the Stadium Inn in Nashville in January, and Big Country Shane Williams went with me, and you know, we got up there, and I walked in this locker room, and this is a hotel. I don't know if you've ever been around the Stadium Inn, but it's like an old hotel. It's really run down now.
Right.
Last time I seen it, but it had like this little studio in the back of it, and it was perfect. I mean, it reminded you of like NWA or Memphis studio wrestling, you know. And so I remember getting there, and like down in the basement was the locker room, and I go down, and man, I'm just like ready to throw up when I first walk in there.
Yeah.
Because there's Kid Cash, who was with WWE at the time.
Yeah.
The Naturals, Chase Stevens and Andy Douglas, they were the TNA or NWA World Tag Champs on TNA. There's Cassidy Riley. There's Joey Matthews or Joey Mercury. You know, all these guys that I'd seen on TV, and I'm oh Lord, I don't know if I'm ready for this. I mean, you know, my butterflies was going. But I remember going out and working the match, and I remember coming back through the curtain, headed to the locker room, and Bert catches me in the hall, and he says, "Lose that gut, kid, and I can make you a superstar." And so, boom, we're off to the races right there. And from that point on, he ended up giving me a booking sheet, and you know, here's the towns. And at that time, we was doing TV. If I'm not mistaken, we was doing TV on Wednesday nights at the Stadium Inn, and then Thursday, Friday would be a spot show somewhere, and then Saturday would be back in Nashville.
Yeah.
So I mean, you getting 3, 4, 5 days of work,
Right.
And so that was my first introduction to, hey, you getting somewhere, kid. Now let's see if you can hang, you know, instead of just working once a week or twice a week.
So how long are you there for? I mean, this has to be pretty cool, man. You coming from these little bitty shows. I'm not, you know,
Right.
downgrade them or anything, but you're in here with these top guys now. So.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it was really intimidating, but most of them really were good guys, and they took me under their wings, you know.
So
like
they kind of brought you in.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, Cassidy Riley was one of the first ones to, you know, just kind of open up to me and treat me good, and Chris Michaels and you know, Chase and Hot Chocolate Corey Williams, who I went on later on about a year later to have a good angle for the NWA Tennessee heavyweight title with, and then Jason Brisbane, Sean Schultz was there. It was a really good locker room, but yeah, it was really intimidating at first.
Yeah.
But I'm there, and we're working we're working quite a bit, more than I ever had,
Right.
and doing spot shows. I wasn't used to doing a different town every night,
Right. Yeah.
and but it was cool, and so I was there for, I think, up until about '07, and I had started doing the NWA top rope as well, and so they were kind of I would do NWA top rope shows and USA shows, and there was a period where Bert had kind of slacked off and wasn't running as much after the TV, after they started dropping some of the TV stations, and they were doing regular TV in Nashville, and so they were dropping some dates and wasn't keeping us as busy, but
Right.
but I was worked there and NWA top rope primarily for a year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah.
And so then worked, and now there was a rival company too. Tony Falk ran USWO after USA had moved out of the Stadium Inn. We started running shows at the Thompson Lane Boys and Girls Club.
Yeah.
And so we were doing that. Well, USWO was running the Stadium Inn, and so that rival promotion was there. I did end up going and doing a couple of shots for them, which I think I got a little bit of heat for, but it paid well. So,
Right. Yeah.
but yeah, I was with USA and around the Nashville area for about 2 years there, and then ended up slacking off a little bit, take a little bit of a break. But during that time, I remember getting a call from a promoter in Georgia down. It wasn't in the same place that I started, but it was right down the road
Yeah.
from the place. And the guy said, he said, "Hey, I want to book you to come in," and Jimmy Rave was with TNA at the time. He said, I want to bring you in to work Jimmy Rave, and do a USA versus TNA
Yeah.
match." I was like, "Okay, cool." So I go down there and work Jimmy Rave, and we have a good old school match. And then during the intermission, I walk out, and I was babyface against Jimmy, and I go out, and I've got some pictures, and I'm selling, and walk over to a table, and it's Nightmare Ted Allen sitting there, and I said, "You mind if I sit down with you and sell some of my pictures?"
Right.
He said, "No, that's fine." So I sat down with him and probably sat there for the rest of the night.
Mm-hmm.
And I meant to just go out for intermission, but I ended up, I think, being out there for a while because Ted told me. And I'd met him a couple of times before, but never really sat and talked to him. But when I sat down, Ted looked at me and he said, "I enjoyed that match." I said, "Oh, thank you." We just struck up a conversation. Right. And he's like, "Hey, you gonna go on the road with me?" So
Yeah.
I'm like, "Duh."
Yeah, so that was my next question. How you got hooked up with Ted Allen? Ted Allen.
That was it. That was the beginning
That's
of it.
got to be pretty cool. Hey, kid, I enjoyed that match.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be like, "Hey, man, yeah, thanks, buddy."
It always is nice when the veterans, tell you you're doing a good job.
Of course, yeah.
And from that point, I remember Ted calling me. I gave him my number, and then he called me. I think this was on a Saturday, and he called me like Monday.
Yeah.
Said, "Hey, you want to go to Mississippi?" And I said, well, sure. And I just started riding everywhere with him. We would go and we would pick up rings, and we would take them. He would trade them and sell them, or he would take them back to the house or rent them out. And he was always willing and dealing.
Right.
And he always tried to. He would call around and get us booked on shows in the towns that we were going to.
Right.
It was the most amazing thing that I'd ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
And that's when I really started learning about booking, how to get yourself out there. And I remember, like, my first trip with him, we're going to, I think we were going to Mississippi, and he calls the promoter and he says, hey, I got a young kid with me. He's a good worker. Wanted to see if I could get him on the card. And so they're talking, and I remember, Ted's on the phone. He holds the phone down to his chest. He looks over at me and he says, is $40 all right? And I responded with, I don't care what it is. I'm just happy to do it.
Right.
He picks the phone back up and he says, yeah, 40 will be good. And he hangs up and he looks at me and he said, if you don't believe in yourself enough to put a price on what you do, then how is a promoter ever supposed
Right. Oh, yeah.
supposed to
Right.
take what's the word I'm looking for? How's a promoter ever supposed to have confidence
Right.
to push you?
Yeah.
And so, and at that time, I was just working. I mean, even though I'd been working for USA and NWA, and when I was working for Bert, I would work Bert's shows, and he would book us out to, like, Mike Porter, NWA Main Event, and Mike Searcy, NWA Top Rope. And, Bert would, when Bert wasn't running, he would try to get his core guys booked out places.
Right.
And so, but I was always going on whatever Bert was getting me,
Right.
and he took care of me, but I had never really had to do that for myself.
Right.
I just would show up to the towns and get my envelope, and hey, that's what Bert told me to give you.
Right.
And I was fine with that. So I had never really dealt with.
So now you're learning how to promote yourself, and
Right.
instead of having the in between guy.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I'll never forget how, if you don't have enough confidence in yourself to ask to get paid, how do you expect a promoter to ever have confidence in
good
you?
advice, man.
And so, but
So-
man,
So making a living, are you doing? You don't have to get any specific detail. Are you making decent money?
I was
You like you say, you're just happy to be
Right.
there, right?
I was single, and I was still living at home.
Yeah.
So I'm making gas and travel money and a little bit of
Right.
pocket money.
Right.
I'm not doing horrible. Now, I do recall there was a period where when we were really hot, or when we, during that period of time, 05 to 07, there were some weeks that I would bring home $600.
Right.
Which is, a lot of guys, if they look at, a WWE superstar nowadays, they'd think, oh, $600, that ain't nothing. But at that time, for an independent guy, you go and ask anybody, that's
yeah.
pretty good money
Right.
to bring home.
Right.
So I mean, there was times that I was making pretty good. I wish I would have saved more instead of blown it.
Right.
But no, getting with Ted taught me a lot about just the ins and outs of wrestling, and I remember I just learned so much I learned more from that man just riding down the road than I did ever in the ring. Just hearing those old stories and just just listening to that veteran talk,
Right.
you know, and that's the way it is for so many. If they get a chance to ride down the road with a good veteran, you know, that's what you need to be doing.
Right.
You need to be listening to those stories. You need to be listening and picking their brain and soaking everything up like a sponge. And I was blessed to be able to have Ted to do that. During that time too, it was actually September of 2005. I was working for Bert, and we had done a loop like a Wednesday through Sunday or something, Wednesday through Saturday, and I went home on Sunday. And I mean, I hadn't been home for 30 minutes. It was on Sunday evening, and Bert calls me, and he said, "Hey, you got any plans tomorrow?" I said, "No, just resting. You know, getting ready to come back for TV on Wednesday. I mean, because that's what we were doing, you know, like Wednesday through Saturday. And so I'd go home sometimes on Sunday and leave back out on Tuesday or Wednesday morning, you know. And he said, well, Tommy Dreamer just called me, and they're needing some extra guys for Raw in Nashville tomorrow night. He said, I didn't know if you'd be interested in doing it. He said, it pays $250. I was like,
Well,
are you kidding me? Are you? I didn't know if you would be interested in doing it. He didn't even have to tell me what they were paying.
Right. I mean, of course, yeah.
Would I be interested in getting my foot in the door with the largest company in the world?
Yeah.
Really?
If you're interested.
Yeah. I didn't know if you'd be interested in working WWE Raw tomorrow night. But.
So what's your mind? I mean, I'll be like.
That was nervous. Well, I remember before he got off the phone, he said,
I'd already been in the car and it's heading that way. I mean,
he said, I said, is there anything that I need to know? And he said, oh, it's at the Bridgestone Arena.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I'm sending some more guys, so you'll know some more of the guys. I'm like, okay. And he said, wear a suit. And I'm like, oh, okay. I hung up the phone and I'm thinking, oh crap, I'm gonna have to go buy a suit. I don't have a suit.
Yeah. Well,
luckily,
I've known you for a long time. I'm like, hey, this guy needs a suit, and this guy ain't got no suit.
I've got one suit hanging in my closet.
Yeah.
And it was the reason that I got that suit was for this occasion.
Right.
Because and what I ended up doing was calling my dad.
Uh-huh.
And I said, hey, I'm working for WWE tomorrow night, but I've got to wear a suit. And so I went and picked up a suit from him, and he just gave it to me.
Yeah.
And it's been hanging in my closet ever since. It's the one that I wear.
It's the one.
The one that I wear if WWE calls or if I'm asked to wear one at a funeral or something.
Right. Yeah. So you got the call. You're heading up.
Yeah, I go up.
You got your suit. You're heading up.
Yeah, I got the suit. I didn't have the whole package yet. I had I think it was a black and red tie at that time. And, you know, my hair was still my natural color. But I go up and go in, and basically we just sat around. We, you know, got in the ring and worked out a little bit before the show, because we had to be there at like 12 or 1 o'clock in the day. And so, you know, got in, walked around the building and just looked at all the
yeah, of course.
you know.
Yeah.
And got in the ring and worked out and, you know, did some practice matches. And so but yeah, it was a pretty cool experience. And we didn't end up doing anything that night, but we got paid. So
yeah. So
when we got there, you know, they had talked about, we need we're going to need a couple of guys. Big Show, if I'm not mistaken, Big Show had just come. They'd just done the draft, and Big Show had just come over from SmackDown to Raw, and so he was doing those 2 or 3 on 1 squash matches, and so they were talking about, hey, we're going to need a couple of guys to work Big Show, and I'm like, yeah,
of course.
They're like, hey, you got your gear? Of course I've got my gear.
Yeah.
And they scrapped that, and then there was a match between Shawn Michaels and Chris Masters. They were talking about having us do security, and a couple of us taking super kicks from Shawn. I'm like, yep, I'm your guy. I'm your guy. But they ended up kicking us out early, and I really don't 100% know fully what was behind that, but I think what I've heard through the grapevine, I think that they thought that one of the guys that was with us was a spy from TNA.
Yeah.
Which at that time TNA was, of course, Nashville based.
Right. Yeah.
But running in Nashville. Mm-hmm. They might have went to Orlando by then, maybe not. But either way, I think I'd heard that they thought one of the guys was a TNA spy, and he was going to, send storylines and stuff back to Jeff and those guys. But
so for the record, Casey Kage is not the guy, the spy from TNA.
No, I was not the TNA spy. No.
There you go, listeners. It wasn't Casey Kage.
It was not me. Other than my relationship with USA Championship Wrestling at that time, I didn't have anything to do with TNA.
Right.
USA was kind of like a feeder system for them.
Yeah.
But they, Bert was really connected with everybody.
Right.
So, he could get you extra spots on TNA. He could get you extra spots on WWE. So, he was somebody good to have in your corner.
Yeah.
For like these spur of the moment happenings like this.
Yeah. That's still pretty cool though. I mean, you didn't make the show, you didn't get to be on the actual show or whatever, but you got to be in the ring. You got paid.
Right.
They still paid you, so it's like
$250 to sit there and eat.
Thanks, pal. Yeah.
Sit in catering and eat.
Right. Yeah.
So I didn't mind at all. It was a cool experience. But yeah, they ended up, and what they usually do is they'll have the guys, like I found out later on when I went back in 2010 or 11.
That was going to be, so you got your first taste of this.
Yeah, we don't have to go there now.
Yeah.
What I was just going to say, what I found out was, they would try to get the guys to come in for extra spots to do Raw and SmackDown. They would do Raw live and tape SmackDown on Tuesday nights. And so we would go to each town. And apparently we might have been on the docket to do that in 2005, but because there was a rumor of somebody being a TNA spy, I guess, all of us Nashville boys got kicked
send
out.
Them all home. We can't forget. I got you. So you do that, and then I don't know where you want to get. I want to get into where you actually get the call from WWE. But if there's anything of course we can't cover everything.
No,
I mean,
Lord no.
There's somewhere you want to go before we go there.
Well,
after USA,
I know during this time at home we were still
some stories you want to share.
Yeah, we were still doing CWF shows from time to time. We were trying to do those, and we was running, like at the Armory, in Cleveland. That's where we started out, and it got really expensive. And I had in 2007, Bert started kind of slacking off with his bookings. So, I was traveling with Ted and working whatever he got me on, and then we were doing the CWF shows, you know, around Cleveland,
Right.
Benton area. We were doing them, you know, like I said, at the Armory or at, you know, different schools, or we were doing them at the show barn up here in Benton.
I've heard stories about. I heard pretty good shows. You know.
They were really good shows, and we always had grade A talent.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of hidden gems
Right.
that could have been found in the CWF locker room.
Right.
But you know, we did great shows there, and that's from 07 until late 09. That's pretty much what I did.
Yeah.
When Bert slacked up, I would work whenever Ted got me booked somewhere and needed help setting up a ring or whatever, you know, I'd go with him, and then I would work shows wherever I could get booked. But you know, we were mainly focusing on the CWF stuff, and then man, we had some great stories, great storylines. And then we went up to TCW, which started out in Dayton, Tennessee, but moved over to Graysville. And that was a hot little town.
Yeah.
And we did this CWF invasion, and we did a night where the CWF crew was me, Brian Rivers, Keith Hart, and I think at that time Chip Hazard. And then later on there was KT Hamill, and you know, we switched out a couple of times, but that was the main guys that come in and was the heel group. We called ourselves the Mirror Image, you know, so the original was, and me, Keith, Brian, Chip, and managed by Jay West.
Yeah.
And man, those people hated us. We went in there, and Robbie Lee Jordan, the promoter, and he was, if I'm not mistaken, he was like a city councilman or commissioner or something like that too. And we go in one of our first nights there, and we are beating up on Robbie, and then his girlfriend at the time slides in the ring, and she's trying to protect him.
Yeah.
And Jay gives me the signal, and I grab her and throw her head between my legs, pick her up, and give her a pile driver.
Yeah.
Oh my Lord. You talking about people going nuts. And we're in this little old elementary school building, and I mean, these people are going crazy.
Right.
They're packed in there like sardines, and I mean, the heat was off the charts. The police rushed the ring. Of course, Robbie had connections and was able to get some strings pulled there. But you know, 3 or 4 officers hit the ring and threw us down and handcuffed us. And I'd told them beforehand, I said, do it like you would a criminal. You know, I want these people believing.
Right.
And so, you know, they throw us down and they cuff us, and I'll never ask an officer to do it like they would a criminal again.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, lighten up.
Careful what you ask
Yeah,
for.
I know. But, you know, they threw us down, cuffed us, pulled us out of the ring.
Right.
We had to fight through the crowds. They took us outside, put us both in the back of a cop car, and took us to the police station. And we went in with the cop. Cop took us in, had to lock the door. People had left and followed people from the show, left and went to the police station. And we had to sit in there for like, I think it was probably an hour or longer. Before they could get people cleared off. They better stay in jail. There was no sense in them hurting that poor girl. She was just trying to protect Robbie.
Yeah.
I mean, they was, madder than a hornet. And so, I mean, that was such an explosive angle. And that town, the people believed. And that's what I loved about it.
Yeah.
It was not entertainment to them. It was the real deal. It was like, Mama and Papa back in the day.
Yeah, I want to get your thoughts on that, 'cause that's what I think is what's missing today, is the believability of it. I mean, as a kid watching, man, you believed. I mean, this is really happening. I mean, this is because the storylines made sense. Everything just made sense. When two guys are wrestling or telling a story, and I hear y'all talking about it all the time. Listen to the past podcasts, but man, that's one thing that's really missing. Is just the storytelling and getting real heat for that.
Yeah.
I mean, they believed. I mean, this guy, what's he doing? Put him in jail,
Right.
It's like,
yeah.
And yeah.
I do. I miss stuff like that.
Right.
I like in some ways, people knowing that we're entertaining them.
Right.
Because of, this podcast.
Right.
We can sit and talk and be open about stuff, which it's took me a long, long time to get to this point where I'd open up about stuff publicly about the business, because, I was always taught, hey, kayfabe,
Right.
you don't tell nobody.
Yeah, definitely.
But I mean, you got the WWE network that, they tell everything anyway, and then that's hard. So on one hand, I like some aspects of the sports entertainment side to where, okay, these guys are entertainers. But I grew up on pro wrestling.
Yeah.
I grew up on, when you were a heel, you were a heel.
Right.
And people trying to stab you, people trying to come across the rail on you. And I mean, those towns is, for the guys who are just getting in now, who've never truly experienced being a real heel, it's an amazing feeling. I mean, you don't want to get hurt by these people,
Right.
but it's a feeling of pride and accomplishment when you can make somebody so mad that they're trying to come across the rail, or they're trying to come in the ring at you.
Yeah.
I mean, you want those people who believe.
Yeah.
Because working in front of a crowd who really believes and working in front of a sports entertainment crowd are totally different things.
Okay.
And so the guys who have never experienced that wouldn't know what I'm talking about. But you go and you ask any old school veteran about these towns who believe, and being able to do storylines that really brought the people in and got people involved, made people sink their teeth into it.
Right.
You ask those, and I'll guarantee you every pro wrestler is going to say, that's the crowd that I want.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's a totally different energy,
Yeah. So you're doing CWF. You had this great show, a lot of heat for it.
Oh, man. So, TCW, we're doing the CWF versus TCW, and we end up doing the blow-off, which really wasn't a blow-off because it kept going until we left that place.
Right.
But we ended up, the whole angle culminated into a War Games, and it was great stuff. And even Jay West was in it, and that's what everybody wanted. He was the mouthy,
Yeah.
and and that's what people wanted to see. Though people wanted to see the good guys get their hands on him,
Right.
And so they finally did, and he's bleeding and everything, and he ended up tapping out. I Scorpion Deathlock or Crippler Crossface or something like that. But I mean, it was an awesome night, and that whole angle and that whole town
Right.
was just it was like we found a pocket
Yeah.
of people who wasn't smartened up. They wasn't listening to anything Vince was doing. They were pro wrestling fans.
Right.
You know, they were old school Territory or NWA fans, you know. And they were hardcore. And they believed. And that was so much fun.
Yeah.
Such great energy every time. I looked forward to those shows every time.
Yeah.
They were great. So I was there, and then in 2009, I got with who is now my wife, and I'm talking, you know, and I had kind of sat back and decided, I'm just going to work local shows.
Right.
I'm not shooting for the stars anymore.
Right.
You know, I'm just going to get me a regular job and, you know, wrestle for some side money.
Mm-hmm.
And so I hear of a Dutch Mantell seminar, and I'm thinking, man, that's a great opportunity to learn. One of the greatest minds ever in the sport, you know. And so I call Cassidy Riley. I think I called Chase too, just getting their opinion. I'm like, what do y'all think? You think I should go to this thing? I'm like, man, he's one of the greatest minds ever, you know.
Yeah.
If you can make it, yeah, you need to be there. But I also had kind of in my mind, like, I'm not trying to do this for a living anymore, so what's the point in going to the seminar, you know? But Jonna told me, she said, why don't you go live your dream? And just those words ignited a whole new fire.
Right.
And so ended up going up. I think it was me and Jay and Rivers went up. And like I said, this is toward the end of 2009. Go up to the fairgrounds in Nashville, or the TNA Asylum, whatever you want to call it, and do the Dutch Mantell seminar. And we do some ring work, and we do some entrance stuff.
Right.
You know, he's teaching us how to come out the entrance, how to captivate the crowd, and this and that. And so we go through the seminar, and we get done, and then he's individually, you know, going around and talking to the guys privately, you know, just, and he pulls me out to a seat, and just me and him, and he said, your in-ring work's good. He said, but you need something to make you stand out.
Mm-hmm.
He said, think outside the box. I said, okay, well, like what? And he said, hey, come up with a new town that you're from. You know, come up with a gimmick, some kind of, where are you from? I said, Cleveland, Tennessee. He said, don't be from Cleveland. He said, come up with something.
Right.
So I ended up coming up with Emerald City, Florida. But one of the things that he told me, he said, I think you should bleach your hair.
Right.
And I said, I don't know about that.
I know you pretty well, so I'm thinking how this is going in your mind. The guy's telling you should bleach your hair.
Yeah. He said, I think you should bleach your hair.
Because I can see your face. I can picture your face even back then. Like,
and I'm like, you know, I appreciate it, but I don't know about that. And I'll never forget, man. He looked me dead in the eye, and he said, that's okay. I ain't never been anywhere or done anything. Don't listen to me. And he got up and walked off.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh crap. What have I done?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You know, so I went and chased him down, and I said, sorry. I think you might be. I'm gonna try that.
Yeah.
But you know, that was my thought. You know, I spent money to come up here and do this seminar to learn.
Right.
And then I've got this guy who's been a great wrestler, great booker, all over the world.
He's
giving me advice.
He's never done anything.
Right, yeah. He's giving me advice, and I'm refusing his advice.
You're right.
You know, well, you little green idiot. Well, you know? So from that moment, that started a whole new fire and started going in a different direction. And Kage actually started developing a gimmick or a persona.
Right.
So I go home and I bleach my hair.
Yeah.
And at the time, my head was shaved, you know, so I had like a burr, and it's naturally black or dark brown, you know, and so I bleached what little hair I had, and those first promo pics I took and sent them to Dutch, and I'm like, what do you think? I went and I bleached my hair, and it was kind of orange.
Yeah.
And went and got a vest, or I had a vest, but put on the vest, and I went and got some boas from Hobby Lobby.
Yeah.
Got these boas and wrapped around me, you know, and then I actually even put, you know, took some and glued around my vest and everything, you know, and but I mean, those first couple of promo pics kind of looked like gold dust.
Yeah.
You know, I had the burr and kind of the orangish hair because it was dark originally, so it wasn't bleaching easy. It took a couple of times before it was blonde. But from there, I started going from Emerald City, Florida.
Yeah.
And got the bleached blonde hair, and it just kind of starts taking off. I start going and doing shows in Morristown, Tennessee for EWP, and then somehow get a call to go back to Nash Vegas and start working for USA Championship Wrestling again.
Yeah.
So, well, I'll actually tell you how that came about. I bleached my hair, and I hadn't been to Nashville it'd been 2.5 years or so.
Right. Yeah.
But I bleached my hair, and we were doing a CWF show in Benton. Well, there was another show running the Armory in Cleveland that same night. And some of my buddies from USA were on that. Actually, Chase Stevens, who was with TNA at the time, you know, he texted me. And he said, "Hey, how far do you live from this Armory?" I said, "I'm not far." He said, "Are you on this card?" And I said, "No, I'm not on that one." I said, "We're doing one up the road in Benton." He said, "Well, we need to get together after." So he ended up meeting him after we both got done with the shows, and we went out and sat around and then come back to the house. And at the time, Chase was going to Texas a lot, and he starts talking. I like the hair. I like the new, you know, the new look and everything. And he said, "Well, what are you doing? Are you just going to work local, or are you?" I said, "I'm going to start taking more bookings and getting out."
Right.
And so that night he called and got me on a show in Houston or Dallas, somewhere, you know, that very next week.
Yeah.
And he's like, "All right, you're with me next week." And I'm like, whoa. So you know, I start traveling with Chase, and then of course Chase lived in Nashville, so I was at Chase's a lot. And so when we were home, when we wasn't on the road in another town, you know, we were working for Bert at USA. He had started running Hot and Heavy again, and So that was what we were doing. We were doing the USA, and then going out and working for Ryan Genesis in Texas, and so that was a good time. Running the roads with Chase, man, he's another one that taught me a lot.
Right.
And he really started teaching me character development.
Right.
Living the gimmick.
Mm-hmm.
And just a lot of those things that you don't pick up in your regular training school.
Right.
But teaching you, look the part, stand out, whether you're at a wrestling show or whether you're walking in Walmart, make people look at you and say, I don't know who that is, but he's somebody.
Right.
He's not just your everyday Joe that works at the grocery store down the road.
Yeah.
That guy's somebody.
Right.
And so he started teaching me about carrying myself like that. You want to be a superstar, act like a superstar.
Yeah.
Of course, I kind of took it to the extremes, and you ask my wife now. I ended up doing a lot of stupid stuff, and I was carrying myself like a superstar, in and out of the ring, and even at home when I shouldn't have been.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, that was one of the big things that he taught me, and those things are important things for people to understand, because in wrestling, a lot of times you've got guys who can talk, but they have no skills in the ring, or you've got guys who have awesome skills in the ring, but they can't talk, or there's no character, there's nothing that makes people want to see them, nothing that makes people want to be a fan of them. So putting that total package together, is really important. And it's really important for guys to learn.
So you took the advice, dyed the hair blonde. Things are rolling pretty good, and you went from Benton to Houston to just traveling everywhere, right?
We're
just on the road traveling, learning
on the road.
How to be
and
a
that's
superstar.
Right. That's another. I can look back and see how my career. Hoss broke me in. He gave me my first bumps, taught me my very first step basics.
Right.
And then I got with Jess Wade and Shane Williams, and they polished my in-ring stuff, and taught me a lot there. Then I got with Ted Allen, and he taught me so much about getting yourself booked and how to be a wrestler. He also taught me a lot of times about how to be cheap. Don't blow money when you're on the road. And then getting with Chase, and Chase teaching that character development and that superstar mentality. So man, I look back at all of it, and I've had some great teachers. And I can't leave Dutch out for telling me to bleach my hair blonde, because I don't know that anybody would have noticed me if he hadn't have
if he
told me to bleach my hair.
Same.
But I mean, through my whole career, the last 18 years, I've had such great teachers, such great people who would take me under their wing and let me ride with them, let me work with them, and would teach me, and I was never afraid to be criticized.
Right.
That's one thing that guys need to grab a hold of today, is it's okay to take constructive criticism, because it helps you grow. Don't get mad. Don't think that you're such a somebody that nobody can teach you anything.
Right.
when you get to the place where you're a know-it-all, you may as well hang it up because you're going to get hurt.
Yeah, definitely.
But I had great teachers who, and great trainers, great teachers, great promoters to work for who taught me a lot of stuff. So I mean, it was just great. And I look back through and I can see how so many people stick out who taught me this or taught me that, or, hey, why don't you do this way or do that way?
Right.
Why don't you bleach your hair? Why don't you wear this? Just so many different things that brought the package together.
Yeah.
So during that time, working for USA, traveling with Chase, and so me and Brian Rivers are riding with Chase, and I think we're on our way to a USA show. And I remember Chase, I can't remember exactly how the conversation got going, but Chase told Brian, he said, you should bleach your hair.
Yeah.
And you guys should tag. I was like, oh, cool. Because, we had tagged a couple of times.
Yeah.
But we were both singles guys, And, we had one match in particular in Morristown where we were thrown together as a tag team against another throw-together tag team. And that night specifically, I remember the chemistry being like, boom.
Right.
That something just clicked, And so I was blonde, and he was not at that time. But Chase, mentioned to him about bleaching the hair blonde and us starting doing tag. And so the next loop we go next week, Rivers is blonde. And so we go to USA, and Bert starts pushing us, and we're in talks with Carlos Colon, World Wrestling Council in Puerto Rico. That never ended up working out, which I look back now and I can see that was a God thing.
Right.
Because the time that I was supposed to be over there, supposed to be going our first stint for like 6 months.
Yeah.
And so the time that I would have been over there, my son would have been born.
Right.
And I wouldn't have been able to be there for
Yeah.
it. So I can look back and see where that was a God thing. But yeah, I mean, Bert is actually the one. We were just Kage and Brian Rivers, and then I'm pretty sure like one night we're on our way to the ring, and he's like, Kage and Brian Rivers, the Fabulous Blondes. And me and Rivers look at each other like, what? Who? Oh, okay. So, boom,
y'all, man.
The Fabulous Blondes are born.
Fabulous Blondes are born. That's great. So you guys are tagging. How long are you guys tagging?
Oh, we ended up tagging, I think, up until like 2012 when I ended up taking some time off. But during this time, we're working all over the place. We're working, of course, for Bert. We're working for Woody at Deep Southern Championship Wrestling, which was another awesome promotion. Nothing but professionalism and top-notch guys. But we're working all over the place, and then get a call to go back to the place that I never thought I'd go back to, WWE.
Yeah.
And so we go up there, and we're doing matches before the show, and doing these extra spots. And I remember going up the first time, and the first time we did it, it was on the SmackDown tape, and like Monday night, I didn't do anything. I just got paid to sit there.
I wore the suit,
Right.
and this is what I mentioned earlier. I didn't have the whole package
Right.
The first
Yeah.
time because I had like a black and red tie.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this time when I went back, I wore I was blacked out, but I had a turquoise tie
Yeah.
and my blonde hair. Totally different critter here.
Yeah.
So I remember the first night, on Raw, didn't do anything, just sat there and got paid that night. Well, then we go to the next night to tape SmackDown, and they choose me and Shawn Schultz to go do the Cody thing. Triple H comes up and he says, we're going to put you with Cody doing the gimmick. I'm like, what gimmick? This is where I learned something.
Yeah.
Okay. I love wrestling. At the time, I didn't watch WWE.
Right.
I didn't care nothing about it, and I'm really still like that today.
Yeah.
I'll flip it on from time to time to see what's going on, but I love the 80s and early 90s stuff,
yeah.
or older, And so when I told him I didn't know what gimmick with Cody,
I mean,
Cody
that's-
Rhodes,
I can imagine how that was.
yeah, well, I'm like, I look around, I'm like, what gimmick?
I mean, he's probably looking at you like you've never seen.
Well,
you never watched the.
Yeah, and
never
I
watched
hadn't.
the show. You never seen the product.
I
you know what's
hadn't
going
I
on?
hadn't watched what Cody was doing at the time, and it was during
Right.
that time where Cody had been doing an angle with Rey Mysterio, and he got a 619 or something, like broke his nose,
Yeah, I
and
remember
Cody's
that.
wearing that mask, and
Yeah.
Rey destroyed his face and whatnot, and so Cody is doing this thing, where he's got guys going to the ring with him, and we're passing out paper bags.
Mm-hmm.
And to the crowd, with their eyes
Yeah.
and mouth cut out, because he's saying, hey, I'm not ugly, you are. You need to put this on,
Yeah.
But I had no clue about it. And so when they tell us that we were going to be doing the gimmick with Cody, and my response was, what gimmick? Man, I remember Hunter going, what gimmick? Do you not watch the product? And I was like, not in a few weeks. And he said, you want to work here, but you don't watch the product? And I was like,
But you're thinking, I think I just blew out.
I was like, I blew it again.
Here's my shot again. I just blew it because I don't know what's going on.
But anyway, we end up going out and doing that, and that was the first experience as a Cody Rhodes assistant, not bag boy. See, a lot of people get it confused.
So
I was not a bag boy.
I was supposed to ask you, so you was a professional bag boy.
No. I got paid
I knew
a
you
lot
was
to
gonna
be
go
a
there.
bag boy.
Yeah.
But no, I was not a bag boy. I was a Cody Rhodes assistant.
Right, yeah.
So, yeah. We did that. And then, we were traveling around. It got to the point where me and Rivers and JP Magnum were, we were inseparable at the time anyway. And we were all riding in the car, doing these WWE shots. A lot of times, anytime they were, in the southeast area,
Yeah.
we were doing shots with them everywhere from South Carolina over to Arkansas. So, anytime they were in this area, I don't know if they had a specific list or what, or if we were just, luck of the draw, but, we were working for them about every time, we'd go do the Raws and SmackDowns, and sometimes we would do stuff, sometimes we would do matches before the show, sometimes we would just hang out and get paid.
Yeah.
So,
I see.
hey,
I'll take bag boy any day.
it was a very high paid bag boy for 5 minutes worth of work.
Yeah.
$250. I'll take it.
Yeah.
I wish I could do it every day.
Yeah. So, So you're doing this for Cody. You're doing his assistant thing. How long does that go on?
Well, that actually, we were doing different. Like
Doing different.
I did it, and then a couple weeks down the line, Rivers did it. We never actually got to do it together,
Right.
but they would just pick us
Gotcha.
at random.
Yeah.
Hey, you and you, come do this, which was fine. But we're working for them, on and off, doing these extra spots, up until 2012. I remember, I think it was January 2012 was the last time I worked for WWE. And man, I didn't understand it then, but
So what happened?
I can look back and see, hey, it's a God thing.
Right.
I was burnt out, and I remember we had done Raw in Memphis, and then we done the SmackDown taping on Tuesday in Little Rock, Arkansas, and then like that next morning we got up and we're leaving the hotel, and we throw our bags in the trunk of the car, and I remember telling Rivers and JP, I'm burnt out. I'm going home. I'm changing my number. I'm not telling the office or anybody else what my new number is. I'm burnt out. And of course, it was a joke all the way home. Yeah, right.
That's gonna be my next question. How the guys? They just think you're kidding.
Yeah. I guess they thought
He's just tired.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
He's just tired. He'll get over it. But no, and
So
they went on.
So you got it in your mind that you're done. I mean, you're burnt out.
I'm going home.
You're going home.
Yeah, and so I did, and so I went home and I did. We did a few shows here and there. CWF shows, TCW shows around home. But man, I just wasn't having the passion for it.
Right.
And so Rivers and JP, they kept doing the shots. They did several after I left. They kept going up and working when WWE would call, but I just I didn't care for it. I was just tired and burnt out, and I was ready to just be home
Right.
a little bit, And so, like I said, we do a few shows here and there.
A few shows here and there.
Yeah.
While you're home, right?
Not doing anything major,
Right.
For a couple of months. I'm just doing shows around the house. And then May of 2012, we go to a show in Graysville, and we'd been asked, before to rough people up, hurt people. It didn't bother us. We had gained that reputation. We took pride in that reputation,
Right.
And so we were asked to rough a guy up a little bit, and so I did, and actually a lot, and didn't bother me
Right.
at that time. It was all fine and good. Went to the promoter's house afterward, and making a list. Who else don't I like that I can put Casey in the ring with? It's just all fun and games, And went home. And I remember getting up the next morning, and I got out of bed and almost fell flat on my face. My knee was swelled up,
Right.
where I'd been kneeing this guy in the face. My hand was swelled up where I'd been punching him. And at that moment,
the Lord spoke to me and said, if you feel this way, imagine what he feels like. And he didn't even try to defend himself.
Wow.
And I tried to deny it for a little while. I tried to.
I was going to ask you why. I mean,
Yeah.
the Lord, instantly you know it was the Lord.
Right. And I was not, I thought that I was saved
Yeah.
at 14, but truly I wasn't.
Right.
And this was the beginning of him really.
What were your thoughts? It's like,
Well,
what?
yeah. The conviction was so strong. I tried to be a tough guy. I tried to be my normal tough guy self and just push the conviction to the side and say, I'll get over this. But all day, I was pacing around the house. I couldn't sit down. It was bothering me. The conviction was so strong on me, man. And so I ended up, calling my wife, and she was at like a baby shower or something. And I'm like, hey, you need to get home. You need to get home. Something's wrong with me. She's like, well, I'll be home in a little bit. And so I'd hang up the phone, and then an hour later or whatever, hey, you need to get home. I'm not feeling right. Something's going on. I'm panicking. And it's that conviction so strong on me, but I didn't want to admit that that's what it was.
Right.
And I kept calling her. I'm like, you need to get home. Something's going on with me. I just, I'm going crazy here. And, I remember pulling my boots and stuff out of my bag to throw my stuff in the washer, and there being blood, dried blood all over my boots, And it just kept hitting me like a ton of bricks. And finally, I remember sitting down in my recliner, and I'm flipping through the TV. I'm trying to find something to keep my mind off of it. And I run across a preacher on TV. I sit there and watch it for about 10 seconds. Mm-hmm. I said, I ain't watching this. And I went to change the channel, and it wouldn't work. I was hitting the satellite button, the cable button, the TV button, all these buttons.
Hey.
So what's going on with this thing?
Yeah.
Why ain't this thing working, And the only button on that remote control that would work was volume up.
Yeah.
I tried to mute it. I tried to change channel, everything. The only button that would work was volume up. And so I just laid it down. I was like, okay, Lord, laid the remote down.
So you still trying to deny the
Oh, yeah.
conviction?
Yeah. I laid
We've
the
all
remote
been there,
down on the
guys.
table.
Yeah.
And as soon as I focused on the TV, he said, my message today was on forgiveness. He said, do you need to forgive someone for something they've done to you? Or do you need forgiveness for something that you've done to someone?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, if that's you, whether you're in this congregation or whether you're sitting home watching this on TV,
Yeah.
he said, I want you to reach out your hand and say this prayer after me. And he said, saying this prayer is not going to save you, but if you believe it with your whole heart, you can be changed.
That's the key right
Yeah.
there.
And so, man, it was so strong. I'm sitting there shaking.
Yeah.
But I'm still a tough guy, I'm like, nah, I'm not going to do it.
And you thought you were saved when you was 14.
Thought I was. Yeah, thought I was. But I'm like, nah, I'm not going to do that. And then, this is all going on within just seconds, but it felt like an eternity. I'm having this argument with myself,
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm not gonna say this prayer. But I do remember. Finally, I was like, kids are asleep, nobody's home, ain't nobody gonna know. I reached my hand toward the TV, and I just repeated the prayer, and man, instantly. I burst into tears.
Yeah.
And it was like the weight of the world was
Tough
off my
guys
shoulders.
broken.
Tough guy, shattered.
I mean, we talk about this a lot.
Yeah.
We guys think we're just so tough, man. We act, prideful.
Right.
But man, the Lord, when He gets your attention, He's been trying to get your attention,
Yes.
and you keep denying the conviction. You're trying to change the channel.
Yeah.
This is a great testimony. This is a great story, man. For the listeners out there, the Lord will get your attention,
Yeah.
no matter how tough you think you are.
Right.
Yeah. So go ahead.
And one thing too that I've learned through my story and through other people that I know, God loves you enough to get your attention.
Definitely.
And He's going to do everything in His power to bring you to the foot of the cross.
Yeah.
But He's not going to force your will.
Right.
But if you continue to refuse, He'll put you through some circumstances to get your attention, and some are a little worse than others. But no, man.
So what are you feeling? You're just.
The weight of the world's off
I know
my
what
shoulders.
you're feeling, but
Yeah.
let's explain. Explain it.
It was all that conviction, all that I'd been dealing with all day.
Yeah.
Was gone. I mean, it was just like, whew. And I'm sitting there crying like a baby in my recliner, and I remember picking up the phone and I called my wife and I said, she picks up and she's aggravated, because I'd been calling her like 10 times. Hey, you need to get home. I'm going crazy. And she picks up the phone. She's like, yes, honey. I said, we're going to church Sunday. And she said, what?
Yeah.
She said, okay, I'm on my way. Something is wrong with
So she knows.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's amazing. So you tell her we're going to church Sunday, and then something's definitely wrong.
Yeah, something's wrong. I'm on my way.
Oh. Who knew that's all it took to get her home, man?
Yeah.
So, what's after that? What happens? You go to church the next day or Sunday?
I actually think we may have went Wednesday, but definitely Sunday, and then on fire for the Lord ever since. I can tell you this though.
Quick question:
Yeah.
Have you ever tried to reach out to the guy that kind of?
I have still to this day never talked to him. I have not heard of anybody talking to him. I know that he ended up in the hospital.
Right.
But no, I've never got to talk to him. Never got to apologize. I've never heard anybody mention his name since.
Right.
I mean, but no, I've not ever had the chance to sit down and talk to him.
Yeah.
But no, man, that experience, like I said, I thought I was saved when I was 14. I went to the altar in the church. I was terrified of going to hell. I blew snot all over the altar. I cried. I had my good religious experience that I thought gave me entrance into heaven and gave me fire insurance and kept me out of hell.
Right.
But I never had the desire to become a new creation. And when I was 26 and had this encounter with the Lord, immediately I had a desire to be a new creation. Immediately I had a desire to get closer to the Lord. I want to read the Word. I want to go to church. I want to be around believers. I want to be around people to strengthen me. I desired it. That was what I wanted. I was so on fire. So even before reading, 2 Corinthians 5:17, if anyone is in Christ,
right,
they are a new creation. Old things have passed away. Behold, everything is new. Even before reading and knowing that, I knew at 26 I was a new creation.
You knew
something was different, and that's why that verse is so popular with me. People hear me quote it all the time, because I thought I was saved when I was 14, But then when I went back and actually started studying the Bible and realized what it means to be saved, what it means to be born again, I knew that there was something different.
Right.
I knew that I was a totally different person. I didn't have the same desires.
Yeah.
I didn't want the same life. And so I knew that I was not truly saved at 14. So, but at 26, I was totally different. And so it's been that way ever since, just a desire to know the Lord to a greater degree.
Right. It's a great testimony. I've heard the testimony, of course. We've been pals for years.
Yeah.
About 10 years.
Yeah.
Feels a lot longer than that.
Yeah.
So when I see you now, I didn't know I didn't know you then.
Right.
But it really doesn't matter because you're a new creation now.
Yeah.
So I couldn't see you being this tough guy. You're still a tough guy now, but no, if I knew you back then, it'd be like two different people,
Yeah.
For me, because I know who you are now through Christ.
And I definitely was.
Yeah.
I was.
As
totally
I was too,
person. Yeah.
What a great testimony. There's so much more we want to get into. I think we'll have to do a part 2.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I really want to get into after this, and then we did some Global Wrestling Ministry shows.
Yeah.
How that started, and just your journey after that to here.
Yeah.
We'd have to do a part 2 for that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we can do that sometime down the road. That'd be great.
So that's great. I mean, that's because I want to get the reactions from the. You go back, you're doing shows here and there,
Yeah.
and the guy see you now,
Right.
to who you used to be.
That was.
You want to talk about that now? We
Well,
can a little bit. If you
just a little bit. I do want to say that I was
so you tell me
I was like a
you're done, you're burnt out, you
Well,
change your
yeah.
number and everything, and you tell
I was like a ringleader,
mm,
and I had my group of guys that I was always around,
right,
and I influenced them negatively,
right,
for so long.
yeah,
Hey, if you ain't drinking when you're on the road, then something's wrong with you. You ain't a wrestler. If you ain't cussing, fighting, drinking, then you ain't a real cowboy. You know what I mean?
Right.
And if you ain't sleeping around on your woman, if you ain't bar hopping and doing all this other stuff, so for so long I had such a negative influence on people. But after I was born again, I took like 9 months off, and I really didn't think I was ever going back.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when the Lord started dealing with me about doing GWM. And so I started going back and working some shows. But I can say that that's one of the greatest blessings, was being able to go back and be a different influence.
Right.
Be an influence for Jesus.
yeah,
Because these guys knew who I used to be.
right,
And like I've always told everybody, there wasn't a bone in my body that desired to change before May 6, 2012.
right,
I didn't want to stop drinking. I didn't want to stop womanizing. I didn't want to stop my superstar party lifestyle. My life was all about me. It's all I cared about.
Yeah.
Even though I had a wife, even though I had kids, I was all about Casey. And so I was able to go back into wrestling after 9 or 10 months completely away and be who I am now.
mm-hmm.
A new creation in Christ Jesus, and be an influence for Jesus. And so those people, they knew that, man, this dude, there was something really
Right.
happened. this is a supernatural transformation
Yeah.
because I know the old Casey,
Right.
you know, and so that was definitely a blessing, and but yeah, it's been a good ride. But yeah, on a future episode we can talk more about after May 6, 2012.
Yeah. It's a really good. The story continues.
Yeah,
And, you know,
yeah, definitely.
the
'cause
new
that's-
creation. Your new creation is born.
Right. Almost 9 years
Yeah.
being a totally different person. So, you got any more questions? Any fan
I do
questions?
have a fan question here. I have a couple. I'll go with this one first. It says, would you change any part of your journey from when you started wrestling till now?
I'm careful about saying that I regret stuff.
Yeah.
Of course, there's things that I would have done differently.
Right.
I would have never cheated on my wife, or she was my girlfriend, you know, at the time.
Right.
But I would have never done that. I would have never. I wish I wouldn't have been the negative influence that I was to a lot of my friends. I wish I could have been a better influence to the fans because, you know, on social media, Twitter and Facebook back then, you know, I just thought it was so cool to be posting pictures of me sitting and drinking in the bar with all my buddies. I'm like, yeah, look at me. Oh, I remember when I was 21.
Yeah.
You know, just silly, immature things like that.
Right.
That I probably would have done different. I would have number one been focused on Jesus more. I would have been focused on my wife more. I would have been focused on my kids and the rest of my family more than wrestling.
Right.
Because wrestling was my God for a lot of years.
Yeah.
But as far as saying, would I change any of that? I don't think I would.
Right.
Because even though there's been hard times, even though there's probably people who hate me for things that I've done in the past, everything that I've been through and everything in my life has brought me to where I am now.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all part of God's plan to make me into who I am now. So, if I would go back and change things, I don't know that I would be what I am now.
Right.
So, no, I wouldn't
No.
change it.
You know, we all say, I'm careful too. I regret doing that. You know, saying there's things that, you know, we all wish we could change or maybe done a different way, you know.
Right.
But yeah, that's a good question from the fan. I got one question. Favorite person you ever wrestle? Who's your favorite one to wrestle? I think I know the answer, but maybe.
Well, as far as chemistry, one-on-one, I've got to say Johnny Rock.
Yeah.
Man, we had some awesome matches.
Right.
I also loved wrestling Rivers because me and him, you know, we could get on the mat and just exchange hold for hold, and I mean, just if you were into pure wrestling matches, I mean, we could put on a clinic, and those were always fun. But as far as I never with Rivers, I never really had a storyline,
Right.
a long drawn out angle with him. But with Johnny, I did. You know, me and Johnny were basically married for years, you know, in all these different promotions.
Right.
So, yeah, as far as chemistry and match quality, it's got to be Johnny Rock.
Yeah.
I enjoyed working. Golly, I always enjoyed working the Rock and Roll Express too. You know, with me and Rivers tagging. Loved working Chip Hazard and Johnny Rock when they were tagging. We had great matches against Chip Hazard and Talon Williams. Man, there was so many. But as far as probably favorite opponent, that's got to go to Johnny.
I knew that was the answer. I just wanted to, maybe people out there didn't know. But brother, it's been great. It's been great. It's been a pleasure. I say we've been pals. I tell you, my best pal. You really are my best friend for the last 10 years. We joke, and you're probably my only friend, really.
You're about my only one nowadays, too.
We joke a lot, but that's probably the truth. It's, it just, you know, just that connection, man. People always, it's just the Lord brought us together.
Yeah.
Our families couldn't have been more intertwined than they are.
Right.
I mean, so many same experiences, trials, tribulations. We've experienced the same thing as a family.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, it's just amazing to me. We both got kids named Riley, born on the same day, but a year apart.
I know. Ain't that something?
Think about this.
Yeah.
He's got Riley girl, I got Riley boy. Same birthday.
Yeah.
And it's just things like that, man. I think, man, the Lord's just brought us together.
Right.
Now in ministry, you know, we still do.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it's been great.
I have definitely enjoyed it.
And I look forward to what the Lord has in store for us both, you know.
Yeah.
But is there anything you want to say before we go? What would you want to leave?
Well, I really enjoyed this. I didn't realize that I would have so much fun talking about
there's so much we can
my
do,
career,
yeah.
you know. But for all the fans out there, man, whether you loved me or whether you hated me, I appreciate your support. I appreciate you coming and buying tickets to the shows, and I hope that I entertained you. And you know, to all the people, the trainers, the people who took me under their wing, man, I wouldn't be who I am if it wasn't for you. I would have never, you know, done anything if it wasn't for these people.
Right.
So, you know, just thanks to everybody. And if you want my main tip of advice, don't live for yourself and hope everything with God falls in place.
Right.
Live for God and watch everything else fall into place.
Amen.
So put Jesus first.
That's it, brother.
All right. God bless you guys.
You've been listening to Wrestling for the Faith with Casey Kage. We encourage you to subscribe and leave a review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you find your favorite podcasts.